Hi, this is Mr. Trujillo, and I'm doing my next installment video on interim assessment. So in our first video, we looked at how to take the MyPLN course so that you could receive your MyTOMS account and then start using the interim assessment interface on the CASP.org website. Now I want to show you how to actually administer a test. So like the previous video, I have this PowerPoint that I'm using, which can be found in your Schoology group. And in that group, I also give you the link for the CDE created websites to support with interim assessments. So rather than having us watch this video, which you can do asynchronously, I'm going to walk you through the steps on how to do that. So I will first take us to our Schoology group once more, and here is that access code for you to join. If you've noticed in the update feed, what I've been doing is posting the previous year's data for our interim assessments in both English and in math, as you can see here. And I also posted the last 3 years worth of summative assessment data for English and math as well. So I'll continue to post data as we approach interim assessment testing. But for now, let's go into our resource folder for teacher support and then go to the testing folder. So we're going to be using the CASP.org website. Here is the video series I had said that you can use for additional support. Here's the user guide for CASP tests. And here is the overview for the different interim assessments that English and math can do within their respective departments. To help with planning of interim assessments and to kind of calibrate and come to a consensus which IABs our respective departments should focus on, which is a department call, here are the blueprints for English and math as well. So let's go ahead and go to the CASP.org website. And so here you'll notice that I'm going to go to the test administrator interface. It's going to ask you to enter your MyTOMS account. So I already took my certification. So once you do the same, you're going to enter your account and then you're going to log on. So at this point, it's going to ask you which test you want to administer. And for the purposes of this training, we're doing our Smarter Balance interim assessments. So we've only been discussing IABs at this point. ICAs is a different conversation. So let's go ahead and look at interim assessment blocks for IABs. So if I'm an English teacher, I click on the plus symbol, and then notice it opens up the different grade levels that have IABs for English, ELA. You click on the plus symbol for high school as a high school teacher, and you'll notice the IABs and the smaller FIABs appear here. So if I want to administer an informational text IAB, I select the test I want. You'll get a prompt reminding you that interim assessments, just like summative assessments, are not for public use, and they are to be used strictly by an educator and a student in a testing format, not to be used for public distribution. So once you have read that, click OK, and then you can start your operational session. So it's going to give you the option to do standardized or non-standardized if you're using interim assessments strictly for training or to help your students learn how to take the test as a group, then you would select non-standardized. However, if you are ready to start collecting some data in a test format, then you want to select standardized. And that's what we're hoping to collect from all English and math students is standardized data. So once you select standardized, you're going to click OK. And you'll notice that now I am ready to start giving the session ID to my students so that they can begin their tests. And you'll see a CA and some alphanumeric sequence that you're going to distribute to your students when you are giving the interim assessment. So first things first, when you start your session, you're going to start seeing student names appear. Up here in the right-hand corner, it'll say approval, and it'll give you a number of students. You click on that, and then you'll be able to manually add the students in one at a time. Okay, and so that lets the students go into the test. You'll also notice that at this point, students are going to need their SSIDs from you. So this year is going to be a little bit different because unlike the previous years where the proctors would receive the SSIDs for students, this year because we're working remotely, those login credentials will be received prior to testing from their advisory teachers. So we're not going to be sharing data with students in person because we're online. So the plan this year that I have is I'm going to have all advisory teachers email their students their individual SSIDs so that when they come to your session, they'll be able to take that test. Okay, so the way that that's going to happen is I'm going to ask advisory teachers to send individual messages to their students in their advisory class using the secure Schoology messaging system. So they're going to enter their advisory students' names with the same email template that I'm showing you here. They're going to put in the subject interim assessment login credentials. So when they come to your class, have your students open up the email from their advisory teacher that reads interim assessment login credentials. In that message, that student will find the SSID along with their name that matches. And once they send that, then students will, the day of the test, they'll be prompted by you to go to this URL, which will take them to the test session. And from that URL, they will enter the information, the aforementioned information, and you're going to give them their session ID, and that'll allow them to start taking the test. Okay, so from our new URL testing link that I just shared with you, this is the format of it. So notice it looks a little bit different than the secure test app we used last year or years prior. So it's called the Cambium assessment. The student will select California as their state. The assessment they're going to select is called California Assessment System. And like we've done in the years past, they'll enter their first name, the SSID they're receiving from their advisory teacher, and the session ID provided by you, the teacher. Once they sign in, it's going to ask the student, is this you? They'll verify their name, their SSID, their grade level, etc. And then it's going to show them the test that you're sharing with them. And again, you're going to approve the teacher one at a time. And then it's going to prompt the students to begin right after you have entered any accommodations if necessary. So when students come into your session and their name appears, you'll see the names of all your students in your test session. And you actually have the option to enter at this point accommodations or designated supports for students that you think or know need them. So next to a student name, for example, which is labeled in all X's here, and their SSID, you'll notice a little eyeball. That eyeball is actually the option to enter accommodations or supports for students. So during the summative assessment, those will be pushed out automatically for all your students. But because this is an interim assessment, you have the option as a teacher to add accommodations you think your students would benefit from. So for example, if you want your students to have text-to-speech enabled because you feel like a student would benefit from that, or if you want that for every single one of your students, you have the option using this screen I just showed you to hover over this details button and add any accommodation that you feel your students would get value from. Okay, so I hope this video was helpful. In our next video, we'll be looking at some other aspects of the interim assessment and how to grade them. So for now, again, this is Mr. Trujillo. I hope this video was useful, and please feel free to message me anytime and visit my Schoology group for more resources. Thank you.